Hi there. How you doing today? Welcome to the HockeyBuzzcast, and today we're going to start off with Russ Cohen in South Jersey with something to say.
So let's talk about podcasts.
The dulcet tones back on.
There probably are hundreds of millions of podcasts at this point. It's what's amazing to me now is I think every athlete feels like they have to do their own podcast. And I think this goes along with what Kevin said not that long ago is not a lot of them want to talk to the media anymore. So they figure, I'll just do my own podcast. That'll be great.
It's funny, Russ, you say this. I just listened to the I just got turned on to the Rob Lowe podcast yesterday.
Yeah, there you go. But Rob Lowe, I've listened to him do an audio version of his book. I do think he's interesting. But Richard
funny.
Sherman just started a podcast, and
I just hope Rob Lowe's not talking about his antics at the '84 Democratic Convention.
Oh,
he's talking.
Whatever, Mike.
Jeez, Mike.
It was just him interviewing Molly Ringwald, actually, which was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, Molly Ringwald and Rob Lowe both, considered in the Brat Pack. Rob Lowe never did a movie by what's his name, the famous movie guy,
John Hughes.
John Hughes. Rob Lowe was not in one John Hughes movie.
Well, St. Elmo's Fire was not a John Hughes.
I know. So Rob Lowe was never in a John Hughes movie, and he asked Molly Ringwald, who Molly Ringwald was in every John Hughes movie,
Right?
And Rob Lowe asked, why wasn't I? I mean, I auditioned for the part in Breakfast Club that went to Judd. He's like, well, why wasn't I ever? And Molly says, because John Hughes was just he was intimidated by intimidated by really attractive men, and Rob Lowe was like just ridiculously good-looking guy.
He's still a good-looking guy.
Yeah. Well, what are the odds though when we have a pop culture reference? How long it will take Mike to turn it into a sex deal? It's
that was even money at this point.
That was the most infamous moment of his career that almost derailed it.
You got to go there. I can't. My wife.
Sit in the corner over there, Mike. I moved you over in the corner over there. You're gonna sit over there.
I can't get my wife to watch this show because of you.
Did I say anything untoward?
No, you're totally accurate, but you always got to take it. To the sexist reference. There's got to be something.
To finish my point
as
here.
I'm telling my wife, sorry, I'll let you finish. I'm sorry, Russ, but as I'm telling my wife this Rob Lowe thing, oh God, as I'm telling my wife this Rob Lowe story last night, she says to me, well, when I was in high school, it was right around the time like St. Elmo's Fire was being filmed, and she was in Vail, Colorado, and Rob Lowe walked right past her. And she said, "Man, he was like the most attractive person I've ever been around. Like it was just absolutely ridiculously stunning."
Well, those Brat Pack movies though, they were fine. They were fun.
They were good. They were all good.
Yeah, no, they were good.
They were good. Anyhow, to finish the point, so Richard Seymour, who had not found a job yet this year, decided, well, I'm going to start my own podcast. And you know what? Now I'm going to announce that I just signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, could it be any more staged?
Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
You said Richard Seymour.
Oh, I said Sir Sherman the first time before I was interrupted 12,000 times. Anyhow,
sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just kidding. But at any rate, it just seems like this is the world we live in. Why couldn't Richard Sherman just get interviewed by reporters and say, I just signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? No, he has to go through the trouble of a podcast to do that. I just think it's ridiculous.
Did he announce the cancellation of the podcast after?
No, but he will. He will. Once he says something about Tom Brady, that thing will get canceled.
Well, right. This is the way everything is like in the post I'm going to South Beach culture when it comes to sports. That it has to be like an Academy Award winning announcement. It can't be just I'm signing. It's got to be like roll out the red carpet. Here comes Richard Sherman. Who cares? Really?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in the upper right hand corner here, but I'm just letting it work. Whatever.
My latest puppet I made. I like him.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. This is my little hobby on my side. All right. Here we go.
The show seems more unstable than ever. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because so Rob Lowe also had Andrew McCarthy on. Remember Andrew McCarthy too?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
He's just a bitter guy now. Like he's like
I haven't heard him in a while.
No, I've seen interviews with him. He wasn't.
He wrote a book about the Brat Pack that just came out.
Okay.
Oh, okay. And he just trashed them all, or
no? He didn't trash them all. He's just like.
He didn't.
He's never seen any of the movies he's been in. He said, You know, that's a weird thing.
That's
me.
a lie. That's a
Yeah,
there's no way.
that's like an athlete saying I don't read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
so he's like, so Rob Lowe's like wanted to talk to him about all these like scenes in like St. Elmo's Fire. He's like, oh, remember my favorite scene in St. Elmo's Fire is when when Judd finds out that you just slept with Ali Sheedy and Ali's in the other room, and he's like, I can't remember that scene. He's
such a liar.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was interesting. So, and then he says, well, that's why you're successful and I'm not. Like he was like basically like saying, Rob Lowe has continued to be successful throughout his life, and continued to do. I mean, Rob Lowe has done some amazing things.
I would call bullshit on Andrew McCarthy telling Rob Lowe that he doesn't remember the love scenes that he had in the movie Class with Jacqueline Bisset.
Right. I was dating somebody who was a girl who was obsessed with Rob Lowe back then, with Andrew McCarthy back then. And the thing that made me crazy about Andrew McCarthy is like this thing, he's like, I gotta move. He's like he was always had his mouth open, like just when he was, when he's not talking, he's standing there like.
I don't remember that.
I don't like people who just stand there with their mouth open.
Yeah.
Well, he was the they all had different personalities, but he was the guy that the girl could take home to meet her parents. He always played that role.
Yeah,
right. He was the best friend that never got the girl.
Yeah,
right. Well, he apparently wouldn't have gotten he was talking about. The only reason I got Pretty in Pink is Molly Ringwald was nice and got me Pretty in Pink. That thing, Pretty in Pink, but that was like another one. But it was quite something. Anyway,
Judd Nelson, who was so good in The Breakfast Club, he just stopped really acting, right? Didn't he?
No. He does B movies.
Oh, okay.
Well, Russ, what's the movie with Wesley Snipes? The big. No. The New Jack City. He was in New Jack City, and that was pretty big for him actually. Does
he direct though?
I think he has directed.
Well, Andrew McCarthy's done a lot of writing.
I just know that Judd Nelson does like B type movies because I know some people that have been in some movies with him.
Well, Rob Lowe
is still acting.
Rob Lowe tried out for the Judd Nelson part in Breakfast Club. And he said the funny thing about it that you'll never realize is that the script I got for Breakfast Club with that character that Judd Nelson played, wore the entire time he was in the classroom a straw cowboy hat. Which is the funniest thing, like how much it changed over time. He's like basically.
Judd Nelson probably said, "I don't want to wear a straw cowboy."
Yeah, that's what Molly said. Molly said, "Yeah, he probably didn't want to wear that." Judd Nelson just basically wore exactly what that's what he was wearing in real life at the time. That's what he was wearing.
That's why the part was made for him because.
Can you imagine that hat? Can you imagine that role in a straw cowboy hat? Like,
but if you look at everybody who was in the John Hughes world, none of them really made it big. I mean, Andrew McCarthy wasn't a big star. Emilio Estevez.
Demi Moore, I would say.
Demi Moore made it big.
Yeah, I would say Demi Moore. But she was sort of.
But Ali Sheedy, Molly Ringwald, Anthony Michael Hall, Judd Nelson, Emilio Estevez, none of them really made it big.
I think, the funny thing is I'm picturing Mike being in the Breakfast Club, and we're just, after like 2-3 days, we all want to murder him.
Yeah. I loved Ali Sheedy. Ali Sheedy was my girl.
The casting of that Breakfast Club was so good too. Like, I went to a high school where wrestling was huge. 1 year we sent out of 13 weight classes, like 11 to state. That's how good our high school was. And Emilio Estevez was like every wrestler that I.
Yeah, he absolutely nailed that. And you know what's funny? There's two movies for Brat Pack hockey related things. Well, two franchise. Well, one franchise. Emilio Estevez, obviously.
Dreadful.
As the Mighty Ducks, right?
Dread.
And Rob Lowe,
Youngblood.
In my favorite, Youngblood. Yes, I love the movie Youngblood.
No, but Emilio Estevez did the movie about them being trash collectors. That was brutal.
Yes.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
With him and Charlie Sheen.
Yes, the brothers.
Rob Lowe was never better than he was in Parks and Rec, which was just a couple years ago.
He was pretty good in The West Wing.
He was amazing in The West Wing, but Parks, those two roles were just. He said they were his two favorite things he ever did, but Parks and Rec, just incredible. If you ever get
Men at Work, that was the trash movie.
Yes, correct.
All right, let's go. Here we go. For those of you wagering whether or not I'm going to get the date right.
No,
Hockey World.
We already know.
It's Wednesday, September 29th, 2021.
You got a new calendar. I'm Michael Agello, and how about them Yankees?
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, HockeyBuzz.
And I'm Eklund, and I watched the Phillies last night. Ugh.
Wow, why did you do that?
I don't know. They're in it,
Probably wasting 3 hours
in it. After last night, they're not in it.
And you're watching Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we are going to get down to it because we are going to talk about the team that I think is going to win the Stanley Cup today. After yesterday being convinced that the Rangers would not win the Stanley Cup, but I still actually am not. I'm not completely. The Rangers are still my pick to go to the Eastern Conference Final for real. But I actually today we're going to get into why I think the Chicago Blackhawks are going to win the Stanley Cup. And they're a fun team. They're a fun team to talk about for sure. They have a very fascinating team. But before we get into that, Mike, what do we have today? Anything interesting on the docket?
Well, I do think we should mention the suspension that occurred in the Ukrainian league that everybody's reacting to. That Andrei Deniskin, who we talked about it yesterday about the incident, he was only suspended 3 games. Plus a potential of 10 more, but I guess he could pay the fine instead of being suspended for 10 games. And the reaction throughout the hockey world was, "Are you kidding me?" And I think that's justified.
Explain what happened.
No, I don't. We already did once, and I don't really want to go into the description.
Yeah, but it's like $2,300, I guess, is the amount that it cost, or it was 2,300 Canadian. I saw Scott Wheeler posted, so I guess it's about $2,000 in American currency that he's basically going to lose, which is ridiculous. Like at that point, but I was going back and forth with Joe Yurden because I was like, well, maybe the IIHF should do something, denounce it, basically, suspend the league rather, that player, whatever. And and everybody's like, but that won't do anything either because it's just the guy will never play internationally, and it's like. But it would, to me at least, it would be nice if the IIHF came out and said this isn't good enough.
Yeah,
we gave you guys a chance to do this, and you did it wrong. So, and even if even if it's not all encompassing of that league or this guy, I still feel like it would have been a good step forward. And they haven't said anything.
I'm with Russ on that. Like it would be meaningful if they came in absentia, they banned him for life.
Right.
He's banned for life from international tournaments. I mean, I think that would be meaningful. I think everybody go, whoa,
I think so too.
Yeah. So I think that's would be a great move.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I think it would be a good move. That's how they should do it. I wanted to get into a little bit of this Mackenzie Blackwood situation that's happening in New Jersey.
Right.
Having talked to a couple sources. I'm writing on this later. But it's crazy. I mean, my sources I talked to yesterday, said that they're really trying to get him to do this, to actually get vaccinated. Some really interesting facts about him, that I didn't know before. And I'm really kind of surprised. I mean, and the last thing I got another text from my source this morning who I'm just bringing it up now as I'm saying this, who basically said this. He says that the dumbest. He says he was hit. So this is more of what my source was saying about Mackenzie was that he was hit with COVID worse than any other player in the team last year. He said it took him months to get back to breathing normally. It totally affected his conditioning and it showed in his play. I can't comprehend the stupidity of this. Nobody here can. And this is from the Devils.
Well, okay. The thing is, there was an article in the Athletic yesterday, and the quotes from Blackwood do not sound like he's completely opposed to getting vaccinated. He says, I have a couple health concerns, health reasons why I'm working through it a little slower. I have a couple boxes I want to check off and not rush to do it. That doesn't sound like somebody's like, I'm never getting the vaccine ever, ever, ever.
Yeah. According to somebody very close to the team, and then another source even closer to the team, if you know what I mean, this morning I talked to, said that whole thing about him not budging was basically BS. He's told everybody on the Devils and in there that there's no way he's getting it. So
what's BS? He's not budging.
The fact that he's like playing it like, oh, I might still get it or something like that. He's not.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah,
the Devils
not budging.
I look at it this way.
Not budging. Yeah, to the Devils, the Devil. As far as the Devils are concerned, everything he's said is not
the public face that he's putting on it. That sounds like reasonable is fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put
And,
it this
the
way.
other thing that's crazy, is his mother. His mother's a doctor and the president of and chief executive officer at a health and science center in Ontario, where they've done extensive research on COVID. And his mother is a major supporter of the vaccine. That's also, there's one thing about, listen, everybody has the right to do what they want to do with their body. And I'm not trying to be a jerk there, but I really liked it. I texted you guys this the other day. I really liked it when I didn't know what players in the NHL believed in conspiracy theories and had these kind of views. You know what I mean? I don't love that we're finding out that, some of the player, it just feels weird to me. Like,
I'm not overly bothered by that act. What I'm bothered about is, like, all of us in this country, and he's been in this country enough playing, know that since like March of last year, a lot of us were getting at least our first shot. Most had a second shot then.
Right.
That you had all that time until now to make a decision, to look up things, to look up the data, whatever it is you wanted to look at. It's a little late in the game to say now, I still need to see. There's nothing else you need to see. There are studies, there are reports. It's pretty definitive. And the outcome of what COVID will do to you is going to be worse, 9 times or 10 times worse than even if you have some sort of reaction to the vaccine. I know there's going to be some people that get a reaction. I get it, but they're not going to die from it. And I know people are saying, well, if you did, listen, every vaccine has problems.
We've got 48 hours. It's very possible that if they're like saying, well, you need to take this, he could opt out. He has until October 1st.
He could opt out. You know what? And to be honest, that might be the best thing for his team if he opts out.
Now, and even if he gets a shot now, we're talking about a long time.
He's going to miss a couple weeks.
A long time till he gets a second shot.
I just think
the other thing, my stories from the Devils, really frustrating thing is he came in like last year in his exit when he had his exit things last year, and everybody they were talking to him about what he's going to do. He said, "I'm really going to come in and compete next year for the job. This is my position, and I also want to make a really big play for Team Canada in the Olympics. Like he felt like he could be the third string goalie on Team Canada. Obviously, that's not happening without vaccination.
A lot of these players thought that by the time you got to this season that everything would be over with and they wouldn't have to get vaccinated. Remember, a few months ago they were talking about 80% of people getting vaccinated and there being herd immunity, and that would mean the 20% that didn't get vaccinated wouldn't have to get vaccinated. Well, things have changed. The ball has moved, and now the leagues. I just saw a report this morning about the NBA basically saying if you're going to sit out because you're unvaccinated, you're not going to get paid. And the PA is on board with this along with the league. So I don't know, there's an opt-out option with the NHL. I don't know what the option is in terms of players. If they choose not to get vaccinated, if they miss games, whether they won't get paid or not. But
they're not getting paid.
Right.
No.
So there you go. I mean,
and it can't be. I know the chat room's like, well, what about a 5-year study? You can't have a 5-year study on something that mutates every 6 months to a year because there is no herd immunity because not enough people are vaccinated.
Hell,
they don't have time for a 5-year study.
Russ, they deemed it necessary for everybody to have a booster, the Pfizer booster, based on 2 to 6 months worth of evidence from Pfizer being given in Israel, boosters in Israel, because that was the only sort of case study they had. So you can't do a 5-year study. No. In 2026 we'll have a 5-year study.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, it's a hot button topic, obviously. But at the end of the day, the reality is, he's not going to play. He's not. I don't think
it might be better though.
Well,
for the team.
Wouldn't we respect these guys more if they just came in and said, I'm going to choose not to play? I mean, Travis Hammond in Vancouver, he hasn't shown up for training camp. And the speculation is it's about the vaccine and about his family. But he's just choosing not to play like he did before. I have respect for him. That's his.
Yeah, that's fine.
He's not letting anybody down. He's not going to just be there for most games. He's just not going to be there at all. Just like he had kind of an injury.
Yeah,
the difference. And it's not the only people who face those kind of things. There are decisions that have to be made in other industries as well. When you some companies are requiring that you get vaccinated. Just before we went on the air here, I sent in my proof of vaccination so I could cover the Red Wings game. They're not allowing any media who aren't vaccinated to go in. And, I sent them my vaccination card and, I'm very pro-vaccine, but even if I wasn't, if it was my livelihood at stake, I would certainly, get vaccinated and go so I could work.
Yeah.
Well, there are thousands of teachers in New York City that apparently are going to get fired because they didn't get vaccinated. This is across the board. It's not just hockey. It's not just professional sports. It's across the board. You need to be vaccinated. And that, for some players, I know that, and it's not hockey, but the Kyrie Irving thing in the NBA, where he's refusing to even say whether he's been vaccinated or not. There are some people who think he is vaccinated, but he's just doing this to be an attention whore like he's been the last few years. I don't know if I buy that or not. All I know is that if he isn't vaccinated, he's going to lose like $40-something million. And
I guarantee you, someone from New York State, because it's so high profile, will be there at the door and ask him before he comes in that building whether he has the card or not. They're going to do that because he's going
to assert his right of privacy, Russ.
It doesn't matter. He can't do it. They won't let him in. It's a state law. They will not let him in. He can't play.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We got other things we can talk about.
Let me ask this.
Interesting.
I got a few messages last night because. And this is across the board, but I'm just going to use specific to players who were formerly on the Maple Leafs, and people were sort of like, hey, Zach Hyman scored a goal for the Oilers last night in their preseason game. Hey, Freddie Anderson had 36 saves for Carolina. Let me clue you in. It's exhibition. It means nothing. Not a thing. Just like, Andre Kasha scoring a goal for the Leafs means nothing. When the games start counting – and we see how players play in regular season games, then I think it means something. And until then, shut up. Really?
That I don't get.
Yeah, I agree with you, but Lucas Raymond in Detroit has to score in these exhibitions.
He does, or he won't have a job.
He doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
So there is some meaning to him, but I know what you're saying. I'm not going to worry about how many goals Dylan Larkin gets or Tyler Bertuzzi, but
exactly.
Dylan Larkin isn't even cleared to play these games, so there is some concern on him. So
and you want to see these guys like Zach Hyman. You want to see him starting to connect with his teammates, and it's not that you would expect that not to happen. I mean, the reality is, Zach Hyman's going to be a great Edmonton Oiler. You don't have to. Watch him score in the preseason to know that. Like he's going to be a perfect fit for them. He's going to work out for them. He's going to be a great pickup for them. I don't think there's anybody really who questions that. Like I don't think that has to be determined by.
I'll give you an example too. So in Washington, where they pretty much just found out that Nicholas Backstrom is going to be out for the season, Eck, one of the players you said, hey, who could break out there? Well, it's Connor McMichael, and he could play center. So he's going to have a prime opportunity now with Backstrom out, maybe to play third line center for them. And so those are the kinds of things that, yes, the score may be meaningless, but those kinds of guys could get jobs because of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I was talking to somebody moving on to Chicago, my team to win a Stanley Cup. I was talking to somebody there who said, no, the Blackhawks they play tonight. They play the Detroit tonight, right? They play their first preseason game tonight. The first time we're going to see Jonathan Taves back in a long time is tonight. Kirby Dach apparently has looked ridiculously good in camp, like just off the charts. And we would expect that, right? But he's, we forget that, he was people were really so high on him before last year. And then, then the injury happens. But man, add him. So let's get into it. Here's why the Chicago Blackhawks, my friends, are going to win the 2022 Stanley Cup. All right. I am on record as not being a huge supporter of Stan Bowman. In the past, he's not been my favorite GM. I think he's gotten lucky in some instances. I get a lot of criticism for that. But I will say this, with McDonough there, who's not there anymore, remember, but McDonough did something that, I like when teams do. And this kind of pushed Bowman. And that is McDonough said, we're going to win now and forget about tomorrow. and we're gonna win now. And I love when that's my favorite thing for teams to do. That's what that's what I grew up with. I grew up with Ed Snyder, so I grew up with we're gonna win now and tomorrow. Screw it, we'll figure it out then.
Yeah, and then that's a reason the Flyers haven't won since like 1975.
Granted, but they've been in the Stanley Cup Finals 7 times, so give them a chance. Like if my team has a shot,
Give them a chance.
no, if my team has a shot,
formula there, Act.
No, I'm serious.
That
My
might be
team
the
has a
funniest
shot.
line of the season.
What?
Give 'em
Anyway, I want my team to have a chance to win. Okay, I don't care about tomorrow.
I agree with you. It's just to say that the Flyers haven't had a shot. It's been since '75. So
yeah, no, but they've been in more Stanley Cup Finals than almost anybody else. If you get to a Stanley Cup Final, if I'm a hockey fan, I'm watching as much hockey as I can.
Yeah, I mean that's why your point didn't make any sense because they haven't had a shot.
No, I said give them a shot. I didn't say they haven't had a shot. I said give them a shot.
Wait. But this speaks.
I'm sorry, I did not say not.
Wait, just wait a second. This speaks to your overall hockey philosophy when it comes to anti-tanking.
You're right.
People who are in favor of tanking are in favor of their teams winning. They want their teams to be able to get great players. Right. Being in the middle and we're going to win every year. Yeah, great. You make the playoffs every year and then you never win.
Right.
It's all points.
Right. So here's the thing. And Mike, this is also why I hate when we have these draft pick discussions. When a draft pick, we've had many draft pick debates over the years. I'm all for them. I'm all for the Maple Leafs going out and getting somebody for the giving up a second round draft pick for that backup goalie. That kind of stuff. We've had these discussions before. All right. So, like I say, I'm not a big Stan Bowman fan, but I am. I don't love the way that team runs things. I've had people there who've gotten screwed by that team, but I will say this. They're going for it this year, and I like it. And this is what and this is not McDonough. This is Bowman, right? And now Kevin wrote a great article today, or he wrote it last night. I posted it in my spot this morning because it was, worthy of better than anything I was going to write today for sure. And it showed that, and he lists 3 teams that are 3 non-playoff NHL teams from 2021 that could qualify in 2022. And one of those teams is the Blackhawks. So some of the points I'm making here are going to be similar to what Kevin wrote as well, because these are the reasons that I think not only can the Blackhawks make the playoffs, but they can win the Stanley Cup. Okay, first of all, when you've got Patrick Kane, you've got and if Jonathan Toews is back, and he is back, if he is back and he is even like 80% Jonathan Toews, he's a difference maker. He's a major difference maker. He's one of the best captains in the league when he's like that. And Patrick Kane, we talked about yesterday, still in the top 10 players in the NHL, which is amazing. I mean, for he where he is, he doesn't seem to be getting any slower. I mean, he scored maybe less goals just last year, but his team was way less too. I love them. I love the fact that you have 2 guys there who have won Stanley Cups, and they are leading the way. That they are your guys, and they are being amplified by the best supporting cast they've had since they've won a Stanley Cup. This year, this is the best team that Chicago's put together since they won a cup, and that starts with maybe the best goalie they've had since Toews and Kane have been there, and Marc-Andre Fleury. I think this is, I mean, that's, you can argue Crawford played great. I was a big Niemi fan, but Marc-Andre Fleury, he's the guy, and he's coming out basically, and he's either said officially or unofficially that this is going to be his last year. That there's a lot, Marc-Andre Fleury wants this, he's going to want this. He wasn't too excited about going there in the beginning, but I have a feeling once Marc-Andre Fleury sits through one national anthem in Chicago, he's going to be ready to go. This is the kind of thing that excites a guy like to no end. As Kevin wrote, the offense will be improved. I mean, beyond Toews' return, you have Kirby Dach and Kubalik. And Kubalik is one of those guys that people kind of forget about, but he puts up really impressive numbers. I mean, he really is something. He's a great young player. Tyler Johnson's there now. Tyler Johnson, is a guy who can do he can play, he can kill penalties, he can do it all for you. He's fast. He's a little spark plug, and he has been more important for Tampa in big games than Tampa wanted to admit. Like Tampa wanted to try to keep moving him, but at the end of the day, when the game was on the line, Tyler Johnson would come up with big plays for them. in the playoffs. And this is a guy they tried to trade over and over and over again. And by the way, they went out and got Seth Jones, and they went out and they got the best defenseman on the market, probably one of the best defensemen in the league, maybe top 5, top 10 defensemen in the league in Seth Jones. When he's at his best, Seth Jones is absolutely dominant, absolutely ridiculous. All this stuff gives Kane and Taves like a reason to live again. Like this has got to be unbelievably exciting for them. And I'm not even talking about some of the other great forwards that they have. Well, I don't see any reason. And I also happen to think that they're in a division that is overrated. I don't think the Central Division is as good as people think it is. I mean, beyond the obvious top of the Central Division, but I think making the playoffs is very doable for the Blackhawks. I think it's a lock. To be honest.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If you're talking about are they going to make the playoffs, I buy in what you're saying and what Kevin said in his article. Yeah. Talking about winning the Stanley Cup, no.
But here's the thing. And I'll end with this. And then you guys can tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay.
They will make the playoffs. Okay. In my opinion, they will make the playoffs. And once you make the playoffs, there are some teams that once they make the playoffs get better because of the players they have. And there are some teams that once they make the playoffs get worse because of the players they have. Well, Toronto is one end of that extreme. Okay. The other end of that extreme is Marc-Andre Fleury, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, Seth Jones. These guys, Tyler Johnson, these guys get better in the playoffs. And so I think that this is a team that once they make the playoffs, nobody is going to want to play. Nobody is going to want to play Marc-Andre Fleury in the playoffs. Nobody wants to play him now. He won with Vegas, and I think this team is every bit as good as Vegas.
Oh, no. Come on.
Honestly, I really do. And
Please,
I think that people continually overrate Vegas because of the impact that Marc-Andre Fleury had on that team.
Yes, I mean you've morphed your hatred from Chicago to Vegas because
I know I have a headache.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I agree.
Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the day. I'll be here all week.
I agree with your analysis in the sense of nobody wants to play this team if they make the playoffs. With all that Stanley Cup experience, with Fleury, if he plays like he did last year, winning the Vezina Trophy, that'll put a scare into anybody in that division. I'm sure Colorado wouldn't want to play them in the second round or the first round. But that being said, I love their forwards. If Taves comes back, then up the middle with Taves, Dotch, Dylan Strome, and Tyler Johnson. Now they may take Strome on the wing, but they're really strong up the middle. You've got Kubalik, you've got DeBrincat, who's fantastic. You've got so they're really, really good at forward, and they have some depth there. Defensively is where they fall completely short. I mean, I love Seth Jones. Seth Jones is everything you say he is. Calvin DeHaan, you breathe on him, he gets hurt. He's been hurt the last 3 years. Jake McCabe is coming off an ACL injury. Connor Murphy could be the most overpaid, overrated defenseman in the NHL. They do have a couple good youngsters, and I like Fleury. But Fleury's going to earn every dollar of his $7 million with that defense.
He always has, though. I mean, the defense in Vegas was nothing spectacular either for most of the time.
Couple things. Let's not make Tyler Johnson to be one of the great playoff performers of all time because his last 2 playoffs, he's had 7 points. He scored a couple of goals at key times. That's great, but he's not a playoff driver. He's not the same player he was, and he's not as fast as he was. Otherwise, Tampa would have kept him. They definitely would have kept him.
No, they couldn't.
Another thing, their defense is suspect. It really is. And most of those guys have never played together before. That's another problem, except for that second pairing, but then they have Connor Murphy, and he's not very good. Also, on the defensive part of their forwards, they're lacking. They've got a lot of guys that are completely offensive at forward, like Kubalik, like DeBrincat. And Fleury is going to face a mountain of shots. This is the worst defense he's had in front of him in 5 years. As he's older, he's going to be too worn out to get to the Stanley Cup. He'll make it to the playoffs, but he won't be able to make it the whole way with this team.
He'll probably be better the more shots he's taken. That's always been true with him.
He's 36 years old.
It doesn't matter. Did he look 36 last year in the playoffs? He didn't.
It does matter.
He didn't look 36 last year.
Yeah, but in front of a defense,
by the way, he was 35.
Theodore and Alex Pietrangelo. My God, I mean Vegas.
Pietrangelo, great player, but Pietrangelo, Seth Jones. Okay, that you at the top.
Hold on, you know what? defensively, there's not that much difference between the two guys you just named.
Right.
There's almost no difference. If you want to say Seth Jones' offense is better, we'll all agree with you. But I'm not going to say Seth Jones is better defensively than Pietrangelo because I'm not sure that's true.
I don't think so either.
But is the Vegas team defense, not their defensive core, but their team defense better than Chicago by 100 miles? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Kevin, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I agree what you said about everything about the Blackhawks. Obviously, I think they're going to be a more entertaining team. They're going to be a better team, and I think the psychology of Taves coming back is probably as important, if not more important, than what he does offensively. Because I just think it's such, they kind of need him to kind of hold that team together. Because Russ is right on in terms of. They're not all a bunch of great two-way players. There's, great offensive players, and then there's some players on the team that aren't, like Dylan Strom probably is less of an offensive guy than they thought he was going to be. So, there's kind of a mishmash, and Taves, I think, can kind of hold it all together. He's a great leader, and he figures out how it all works. I find it curious that everything I read is they think that Tyler Johnson – should be the center for Kane and DeBrincat. And I think it should be Doc.
It should be Doc.
I think Tyler Johnson should be the third line center.
Yes.
And I think that gives them, far more depth. But they are very good center. I think Fleury is good. He's not a guy that, he's been well conditioned his whole life. I don't think a bunch of shots is going to disturb him as long as they're careful on how many games they play him. They can't play him 65 games. So I think they'll be judicious in how they use them, and probably 50 to 55 games. And I think he can do that. Like I said, I think he's always been well known and known as a guy that's been well conditioned. So I don't think they can win the cup, but I do think they can make some noise, and I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs if they get in. But I don't know that I agree that the Central is overrated. Like Dallas, you still got to worry about them a little bit.
You do still have to worry about them.
They can play. They've got some premium defensemen. They've got Ben Bishop's still saying he's going to come back.
Sagan's healthy now.
Yeah, Sagan is healthy.
St. Louis is strong. Winnipeg.
Yeah.
No, this is not a weak division. And Colorado is the best team in the division.
Yeah. So there, it'll be like if you get into the playoffs, you really accomplish something. So maybe you got a chance to make a run if you get in. But I like the Chicago team, and I actually agree with everything X said about as long as you haven't totally bottomed out, I think you should. Go get in to win. You know what I mean? Like I remember years ago when the Florida Panthers had to make a decision whether to trade Boomeister or try to make the playoffs, and they decided to try to make the playoffs, and people thought it was outrageous. But I applauded their courage for doing that. I mean, isn't that what sports is about?
It is, but the only time I went against that, Kev, was with St. Louis. It was the year that draft was in Carolina. I was sitting next to a guy. We were chatting, and I said, it was dumb what St. Louis did, trying to limp into the playoffs for their 25th consecutive time because they had nothing going for them. And the guy goes, why? Why would you say that? I'm like, because of all that they gave up just to limp into the playoffs and get bounced in the first round. You knew that team was never going to go far.
Exactly.
And that's when they should have started the rebuild then, instead of taking that extra step. But otherwise, I agree with you, Kevin.
Well, but I think you do have to look at it on a case by case. You
do.
But saying that, for the most part, I agree with that. That you try to go for it, and if you do that, a lot of times, it can be negative because you can end up in the treadmill. Where you're pedaling as fast as you can, you never get anywhere.
Right.
And you don't fall off the treadmill either. You're just kind of right in the middle. So. That's a danger when you do that. On the other hand, fans, like it when your team gets in the playoffs. There's no doubt about
it.
Yeah. And I have to say, with any kind of preview of the Blackhawks, it has to be brought up that there's a sort of a pall hanging over this organization when it comes to what the NHL investigation of the whole scandal will reveal. And if that comes out during the season, I don't know when they say that investigation will be completed. Whether it have ramifications. We've already heard about ramifications regarding Stan Bowman in USA Hockey. Whether that'll have ramifications on him as GM of the Blackhawks, on any kind of like fines against ownership for squelching this story. I mean, we don't know where it's going to go. I'm not going to speculate on where it's going to go, but it's something that if it comes out and if it's something extremely serious, what kind of effect it'll have with the team on the ice. It's very possible that it will, because it'll just cast a pall over the organization.
I don't think the Sharks will let that happen. I think the same as Deshaun Watson, Mike. I don't think we're going to see Evander Kane starting the season. I think he's going to
No, not Evander Kane. I'm talking about the investigation of the Hawks.
Yeah, but I think the investigation of the
Hawks
Hawks is definitely. I mean, it could definitely affect management, and stuff like that for sure. But I don't think it's going to affect the players.
It won't affect the players. It could affect management, definitely.
I think if anything, every team, and this is something that I wanted to actually bring up with the Rangers yesterday. Another I had like 7 reasons why the Rangers win the cup. This is really the 8th reason, and the 8th reason is that teams tend to win the cup after going through something incredibly dramatic in a weird way, which is what the Rangers had happen last year. Like the Tom Wilson thing spurred on this incredibly dramatic, weird moment with people getting fired and all this strange stuff happening. That is the kind of thing that shows up, in the Rangers Stanley Cup winning video, next 2 years from now when they put it out. That's the kind of moment.
Rangers, if they match up against Tampa, you're going to take the Rangers over Tampa.
Absolutely. No, but
Can you stop it, please?
No, I'm not. I'm just bringing this up. But I always remember the Philadelphia Phillies when they won with Dallas Green. I always remember the controversy of that year. Like
you
that
in 1980.
Yeah, I'm talking about 1980.
But they still had great players at great positions.
Had great players, but they had great players other years and didn't win. There always is there tends to be a thing that happens when a team goes through something like that, because there's an internal struggle. And I think in a way, the Blackhawks, I'm not saying that this investigation is that. Probably the internal struggle with the Blackhawks is Jonathan Toews. I mean, that probably is the thing that spurs them, the X factor that spurs them even further along. Because like Kevin said, even more than his play on the ice is the fact that he is beloved and he is he's a guy who has lifted the Stanley Cup. He's taken the Stanley Cup from Gary Bettman. That matters, and I think that, and you're looking at a guy who has historically, this is one of my least favorite teams in the NHL. Okay, but I'm just telling you that I am more looking forward to watching this Blackhawks team than any Blackhawks team I can ever remember. I mean, part of that is because I'm a big Fleury fan too, but I think that this team is going to be crazy exciting. And if they get to the playoffs, I think that they've got every bit of the shot. And I will go out on a limb right now and bet you guys right now that they go further in the playoffs than the Vegas Golden Knights.
They did. I have to say something about your 80 Phillies thing. I double checked it. Tug McGraw pitched in 57 games with a 1.46 ERA. That's why they won.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, and they had Rose and Schmidt and Trio and
that bullpen is what won it for.
Yeah, I know. But
and Carlton.
I was young. I watched the video. Go ahead, Kevin.
I did think the Blackhawks made one, I think, serious mistake in the offseason. When they didn't qualify P.S. Suter.
Yes.
I didn't really understand that, especially when you look at what he signed for with Detroit, just over $3 million. And I guess every cent counts because they're right at the cap. But boy, I think he is a talented player. And I think he's the guy that can play in your top 6, could fill in your top line if you needed to. He plays wing, he plays center.
He's a good player.
Yeah, so I didn't quite get that, and he's still relatively young. Like he's still 25.
It wasn't a cap reason, that's for sure.
Yeah, is it just that they see him as only a top 6 player, and he's not going to break into the top 6 of the Blackhawks? I mean, that's like at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, he was last year. I mean, he played with Kane a lot last year. I think it was just they have some talent up front. They knew they were trying to get Seth Jones. They needed money. They needed cap space, and I think they were fearful of what I don't know what he was asking for from them, but probably $4 million meant a lot to them.
Yeah.
Trying to get things done.
Well, they definitely went and they spent a lot of money. They did go out there. I mean, Seth Jones was a very expensive get, and taking on Marc-Andre Fleury's entire salary, that's big.
Yeah.
Now, Eka, we've teased it the last couple of days. We got to talk about this top 75 list from the Hockey News. Top 75 players of all time from the Hockey News. First, every list of this nature is going to have one of three players as the number one, either Gretzky or Howe. Not one list that I have seen hasn't had those players in whatever particular order listed 1, 2, and 3. This is the first that doesn't. It has Howe 4th and Mario Lemieux 3rd. Gretzky 1 or 2. Now, I personally, my list would have Orr number 1, but Kev, having Gordie Howe 4th.
Yeah, it's impossible for me to accept. Here, having grown up in Detroit, having seen him live when he was playing, it's really fascinating. When I say this all the time, though, people call it a cop out, and I guess it is, but it's how I feel. It's really 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, because all of them did something different. Like Wayne Gretzky was the greatest passer in the history of the world, saw the ice better than anyone has ever known. Bobby Orr was revolutionary, changed the way we look at defensemen, was a two-way guy. He was brilliant in what he did. Mario Lemieux simply was the best goal scorer I've ever seen, best on the breakaway that I've ever seen. He was so incredible. He needed just a small window to shoot the puck in, and he could find it almost every time. And for a big guy, he was gifted. He could beat guys one-on-one. He didn't look very fast, but once he got going, he could get by him. Then Gordie Howe was the greatest all-around player. He combined physical intimidation. He was dirty. He played on the edge of the rule book all the time, and he could score. He used to go drop back and play defense. I mean, literally as a defenseman to rest. I have a copy of an AP story from the 1950s when they estimate that he played 48 minutes in a game.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So, he was an incredible, unique specimen. He was a great ambassador for the game. Even though he was, 6 foot 203, Glenn Hall told me more than once that he seemed like he was 6'8" because everybody in the league was 5'10" back then. And everyone was 170 and he was 203. So he looked gigantic, and, he could fight. There is a movement to try to diminish his, prowess as a fighter, because he didn't really fight all that often. He actually only had 2 Gordie Howe hat tricks, believe it or not. But he was just a great player. But all 4 of those guys, it's hard. But I would have, if you put a gun to my head, I would have Howe 1, Gretzky 2. I'd have Howe. I'd have Mario 3 and Orr 4. But anybody that wants to put Orr 1, I don't argue. I mean, you can't argue. He was just such an incredible deal.
They're all interchangeable. But
what I always say, the fun begins at 5.
And this list clearly has a bit of what is referred to as recency bias, because in the top 10 there are 2 players who are still active. Number 5 is Sidney Crosby, and number 8 is Alex Ovechkin. Right. Now, I think Crosby's definitely a Hall of Famer. I think he's one of the best forwards of all time. I don't know if I'd put him ahead of Rocket Richard.
No, I couldn't do it.
I could.
I could too. But I want to let him finish his career first before I do. The problem you have, and I've said this in Pittsburgh, and they basically booed me off the radio. He can't get higher than 5.
That's true.
I mean, it's not his fault. But those 4 guys were such game changers that they can't ever be replaced. Those will be the 4 greatest players, unless something, we end up with 1,000 goal scorer or something.
That's Mount Rush. That's Mount Rushmore.
But you can't. you can only change the game so many times, and I think we've changed the game enough. So I think Crosby can get to 5, but Crosby will get there. With the championships, with the way he played, and I think his edge is he's got. He's certainly not like Gordie Howe, but he has the Gordie Howe in that. He's great on faceoffs, and he plays with an edge. He's good in the corners. He's good on the boards.
So
he's a little Messier in him.
Yeah. So where does Messier rank on this?
Well, let me just ask this, and then I'll mention that. Can Ovechkin, if he beats Gretzky's goal record, get into the top 4? I don't think he can.
No, not at all. He can't because he didn't. He's been a great player. I'm willing to put him 5 or 6, for sure. And he came at the wrong time. And what he does is score goals. And he rise up and changed his game, became a leader, and helped the Capitals win. But prior to that, we saw him as a singular dimension player. And
but scoring this many goals, Kevin, in this era.
I don't diminish that. Yeah, that's his.
He is definitely the best goal scorer of all time. Like in my mind,
no, Mario's better. Alex Ovechkin is a great goal scorer, but let's just think of Mario Lemieux scoring 6 different ways.
No, you're right. I guess if you were to take one moment in time, Mario's better, but obviously Mario didn't play as much, right? So
but in terms of the ability to score goals, I'll take Mario Lemieux. Now, I love Ovechkin. But how many goals did Ovechkin score lined up on the left wing, opened up with the puck?
Yeah, no, it's the same goal. I know.
I have
20% of his goals. It feels like.
Yeah, that he was. And Fleury, I talked to him about it, and he was really good on the subject of Ovechkin. And he said the amazing thing about Ovechkin is, I know where he's going to be. I know that shot better than any shot in the league. I'm ready for it. I'm prepared, and it still blows by you.
Now, to answer Russ's question, Mark Messier is ranked 15th.
That's preposterous. Come on.
Now, okay, it's interesting.
Depends on who's ahead of him.
Yeah. Okay. It's all right.
None of these guys are slouches. Let's just
but I'll read off the top 15 here. So after Crosby at 5, Rocket Richard is at 6. This is too high. They have Doug Harvey 7th all time.
Yeah, that's a little too high.
Ovechkin 8, Nicholas Lidstrom 9.
I think that's a little high, but
no way.
No, that's about right.
Yeah.
Jean Beliveau 10.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Hull 11.
A little high for me.
Terry Sawchuk 12. Patrick Roy 13. Eddie Shore 14, and Mark Messier 15.
Okay, so just as an example, Roy's not better at his position than Messier was at his. He's not. He's great, but he's not better than Messier.
I don't know. Roy's in the top 5 goalies of all time. You can't argue.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, but there's also been fewer goalies than forwards. If you look at what Messier's done to the game, all of his records, it's a lot. It
is so impossible to compare goalies to players.
It's tough for sure. 15 does feel low to me, to be honest, but I don't think it's not too low. You gotta goalies.
No, I think there's at least 2 or 3 he should be ahead of.
I would flip flop him and Doug Harvey. I think Messier's top 10, and I think as great as Doug Harvey is, and this is I'm always been a goaltender freak, so I look at the goaltenders on this list, and I would always have Sawchuk as the number 1 with 103 career shutouts. They have Sawchuk 12th overall, Patrick Roy 13th overall, Marty Brodeur 17th overall, Jacques Plante 19th overall, and Dominik Hasek 20th overall. I think they have the order of 3 through 5 wrong on this list.
I put Brodeur ahead of Roy. Most people
Brodeur's ahead of Roy.
I would have him there too.
I think Brodeur is the second. I really do. I think he's and I could argue Brodeur is the best.
You
honestly,
can definitely argue he's the best.
Honestly,
it's not that hard.
And the fact that these other guys you're looking at played in cities that had so much more coverage. New Jersey is New Jersey. That's That is a factor. If Brodeur had played his career for the Montreal Canadiens,
Oh my God, it wouldn't even be. Yeah, forget
he's
it.
number 7 on this list.
Yes.
Easily. That I really think that's the difference.
Yeah, it feels like we do need a goalie in the top 10. We don't have one, right?
We don't, and I think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a plant guy. I mean, there's plant or Salchuk. I'm a plant person. I don't know, whatever. And I think that I think Hasek's. I don't know that but like I say, to me, it's like comparing tennis players to swimmers. When you compare goalies to players, it's just like it really is such a different thing. I don't think you can put it. I don't think that it's just non-comparable.
I agree with you on that. One thing I also agree with. I could be convinced that what Mike proposed makes sense. That you could just flip Harvey and Messier, because I can live with Messier in the top 10.
Yeah.
Although the players that are all there in front of him, I love too. But Harvey, and part of the issue is I didn't see Harvey until he was like 107 years old. He was
Right.
losing 67.
I don't think any of us saw him at all. So.
Yeah, he just by that point he's
No, I didn't see it. If I saw him, I didn't appreciate anything about him.
But
I mean, Crosby, Richard, Messier, Ovechkin is 5, 6, 7, 8 feels pretty right.
Yeah, and to break it down positionally for defensemen, like I said, Orr was 2nd, Harvey was 7th, Lidstrom was 9th, Eddie Shore was 14th, and the next defenseman was Ray Bourque at 16.
No Chris Pronger on this list, by the way.
No. Is Ray Bourque better than Denny Potvin? Is he better than?
He's not better than Denny Potvin.
Yeah, I think with defensemen, they're all those guys. It's almost like dealer's choice. Like it's who you like. Like when you're comparing Bourque and Leach and Chelios and all that group that have 3 or 4 Norris trophies, like it really does become personal.
The only thing I would say, and this, look, I mean, nobody hated Dennis Potvin more than me growing up. He also played with more of an aggression than Ray Bourque ever did. So I would give him that little edge, saying, you know what? He had that little edge that I think made him a little better than Ray Bourque. And Ray Bourque was tremendous.
Yeah. And my own personal analysis on this one, because 4 years ago, a group of reporters, historians, and players voted on the top 100 Toronto players of all time. That was rated to be Dave Keon, who won 4 Stanley Cups. Dave Keon's not in the top 75 in this list.
Yeah, that's kind of
that's ridiculous.
And that's that includes Red Kelly. It includes Busher Jackson, Charlie Conacher, Tim Horton. I mean, that's a major oversight. Frank Mahovlich, a major oversight.
So where's Jaromir Jagr on this list?
Yeah,
he is 21st.
That's a little low too.
That's a little low, man.
Yeah.
I mean, why is it with these lists that the number 75 player has to be somebody ridiculous? Like that's what they do on these lists. Like, I mean, it's Luc Robitaille. And I'm not saying anything against Luc Robitaille, but I like Luc Robitaille, but ridiculous. Bernie Perron's not on this list. Like to me, there's certain things that are like, I can't put Luc Robitaille.
Yeah, Bernie Perron should be on the list.
Well, okay, is it ridiculous to say that Connor McDavid is on this list?
No,
it's so early.
It's too early.
But I have my take on all of this. I remember talking to Mark Lazarus about the greatest American player of all time, and he said it's Patrick Kane. I said not yet. It isn't.
Right.
Like, do I believe that Patrick Kane will be considered? Yes, I do. Yeah. But I just think it's disrespectful to the guys whose careers have already been established, and a guy that's still on. Like you still have to wait. So Connor McDavid, is he going to be there? Oh yeah, he's so incredible. But should we put him there now? Do we have to? Can't we just wait?
All right. So where's Paul Coffey on this list?
38th.
38th. Come on, just rip this list up. It's total crap.
But here's a ridiculous thing, Russ. He is 1 spot ahead of Chris Chelios. No list of defensemen I've ever seen has Chelios ahead of Coffey.
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah, I mean it's insulting to Chris Chelios, who once high sticked Bernie Nichols in practice around him.
Yeah.
It's insulting to your eyes, is what it is.
If I knew
look at this list,
I would
like
rip
the era of hockey
in front of him.
When I look at this list, the era of hockey that really kind of sucked was 2000 to 2010. Like it's like when, when I look at like the team, like for some reason, I mean, there are players on here from that played in that time period, but they were like at the end of their careers in that time period. But it's really like that. That is like, as far as the top, it's interesting. Like the decade with the least amount of top 75 players would be interesting to try to figure out.
Well, okay. And somebody pointed this out, and I thought this was hilarious. One of the grand omissions of that top 100 list of all time that came out for the 100th anniversary of the NHL was Evgeny Malkin, who was not included in this list. He's automatically jumped 44 spots. He's 56th. His career the last 4 years has not been so.
No, it's not been stellar.
Directly behind Curry at 55. I don't know.
So if he's that high, where's Joe Sakic?
33rd.
All right.
Does anybody else think that like Brad Park shouldn't be on this list? Like it's 62.
He should be.
He is.
I mean, listen, he's a great player, but we're talking about.
He's 62nd.
What?
He's 62nd.
He should be.
I know.
Where's Yzerman?
Yzerman is 28th.
Yeah, Yzerman. It goes Pop Van Bossy, Yzerman, Lindsay, Kelly. In that order.
About Yzerman, I would say, again, my opinion is he was the second greatest breakaway player I ever saw.
Yeah.
After Lemieux, he was money on the breakaway. Obviously not when he got older, but when he was young and he was an offensive player. Like he was so entertaining and exciting, and
he
has
the best breakaway guy in the NHL right now. I have mine.
It's not Michael Grabner.
Breakaway guy. I would go.
I'm going to go McKinnon.
Yep.
McKinnon's a good one, but I think that McKinnon should actually be on this list if McDavid is. Put it that way.
Yeah, I would take McKinnon as well. I thought about it, and
he's a really good one. I honestly would go with Kucherov. I've never seen Kucherov miss a breakaway.
He's good at it, but I think the speed of McKinnon sort of makes you on edge as a goalie because you don't know.
Sometimes he misses because he's going so fast. If that makes any sense.
Sometimes.
No, but he's going. It feels like he's going too fast sometimes. Like I've seen that with McDavid too. Like they're going so quickly. Where Kucherov mixes up everything. Kucherov never does the same thing twice. He's just got a really.
That's fair. I can say that, but I still go McKinnon.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a tough call. I mean I think McKinnon's the best player in the league right now. But
where's Pavel Datsyuk on this list?
I don't think he's on it.
Is he on there? I thought
He didn't make the list.
Well,
he's not on it.
So wait, so you're telling me Luke Robitaille made the list and Pavel Datsyuk didn't?
But how about Brian Leach at 69? Like
all right. Look, that is the insult of all insults.
He got beat out by Scott Stevens, Russ. He's 68th.
Not in the real world.
This is where I have a problem. Leach is 3 points behind Niedermeyer, and I as much as I like Scotty Niedermeyer, I don't think that there's a comparison.
No,
there.
Did Niedermeyer ever lead anything in scoring? No, he was great.
He's great, but I think, I definitely think that
Leach's point totals are out of this world and may never get matched again by a defenseman.
Niedermeyer won 3 Stanley Cup, at least 3 Stanley Cups.
I get it.
Niedermeyer's a great player, obviously, but
All Leach did was become the first American to win the Conn Smythe. But otherwise, yeah, you're right.
It's so hard when you've got like guys like at 43, like Newsy Lalonde. Like, I mean, it's how are we comparing Newsy Lalonde to Brian Leach? All right, everyone, like that's like a PhD.
That is tough.
It's like a PhD thesis to me. Like I can't even begin to start that.
Joe Malone, Old Poison, Nell Stewart. I mean,
that's one-eye Joe Malone to you, Mike.
Okay.
No, but that's his nickname, wasn't it?
I mean, Gilbert Perreault at 60.
No, don't go there.
Why?
Because Gilbert Perreault was an amazing player.
He was amazing.
He's an amazing player. I know, but we're talking there some guy. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's like,
where's Matt Sundin on this list?
He's not on it, and he doesn't belong on it, Russ.
Eric Lindros at 71. Eric Lindros at 71.
That's one part of this list that attests to its accuracy and credibility is that Matt Sundin is not in the top 75.
Where's Brian Trottier on this list?
He's on here, yeah.
41. He got beat out by the pocket rocket, Henri Richard.
No, see, I don't care how many cups he won. He was mostly a defensive player. Brian Trottier is a better player.
Yes.
Lindros at 71. Stastny at 73.
Okay, you know what? If Lindros had a longer career, maybe, but
Yeah.
Stastny had a better career.
Yeah, I think you got. Again, we don't know. We didn't talk about what the criteria was, but there is impact beyond length of career and statistics, even just on the game. And Lindros had an incredible.
He did.
Oh yeah. No, I mean,
So I would put him on any list that of the top 75. Like you can't deny.
Oh no, I don't deny him on the list.
Everybody talked about it, although maybe that's not part of the criteria.
I
the
don't
funny
deny
thing
him
is,
on the
Kevin, we
list.
always
I just think
debate like there's
Stastny-
always either you can either make the best 75 players or the most valuable 75 players, and yet here they did the top 75.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know what that
No,
is.
I'm
But
fine with it.
What the hell that means? Like,
I would define top as including Eric Lindros because
Yeah, I agree.
he's definitely the most talked about players, the top 75 players of all time. Just because he, when he first came up, remember the hoopla and where he was going to end up, and then, when he played his games, and then he was, so big and so strong, and his off ice actions in terms of his contracts always created all sorts of attention. So he's definitely worthy of mention.
Listen, like I said before, like to me, there are like 5 or 6 players that I've watched live that when I went to the games, I just couldn't wait for their next shift. And Eric Lindros is one of those.
The only thing I have to say to that is Lindros was never 1.42 points a game like Peter Stastny was.
No, but talking about guys that
1.27 for his whole career.
The most watchable players of all time, like on my top 5 list for sure, maybe even number 1 if I thought about it. Nah, that would be Lemieux and Gretzky, but Pavel Bure was God. When you were covering a game and he was on, every time he was on the ice, like you'd move forward because he was always a half stride away from a breakaway.
Yeah, and that's the great. I mean, that to me is the real sign. Like when you're at a game and like when's that guy's next shift? You're aware of it. You're aware that he's 2 shifts away. That kind of thing. That tells you something about the player, because that's just another level. Well, we're out of time, but that's fun show, guys. As always, we'll be back again tomorrow when I try to get when I tell you why another team's going to win the Stanley Cup. I don't know who
the Islanders.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're going to talk about the Islanders tomorrow. That's a good one.
If they only handed out the cup like a participation trophy, this would be great.
The funny thing is, I started this whole thing because I wanted it to be a positive in the era of COVID, and what I realized is it's one person saying good things about a team and 3 people saying bad things.
Well, yeah. No, and you got the wrong crowd because you got the angry Mike DiGello and the Russ Cohen who once criticized the man's pants. So
I know. I mean, but so the whole point was like, okay, let's just talk about the best parts of this team, but the way I set it up is what you guys have to do is do the opposite of that. So that makes total sense.
Your mistake is why they'll win the Stanley Cup. Only 1 of 32 teams can.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Mike. I am going to be so right on one of these.
Well, eventually you will because you're going to get one right.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like one of them will look like when I can post it next year. Like here's my article on why the Boston Bruins will win. I will have it down, and people will be like, "Wow, what an article! What a profit!"
I'd be interested to see. I had a discussion on the phone with
And I encourage people to Google search Rick DiPietro's pants, and then you'll be on my side.
Yeah, well, I just had a discussion with a college buddy, and we were talking, just catching up on what we've been doing. And I was telling him I was doing a podcast. I said he should want it, and he said, "Well, what's the deal?" And I said, "Well." I'm on with a couple of guys who always act like they hate sports, like everything imaginable. They can't stand it when everything goes wrong. And he goes, "Well, if you're still the same, I've never met anybody who loves sports more than you do." And I said, "Yeah, it's hard for me because they hate everything. They don't like uniforms and what's going on. Certain players they hate. Everything else." He goes, "I
do love sports. I want to point that out. Sports.
Oh, I know you do, but he just thought it was funny because it's funny because I can see good in pretty much anything.
Considering Russ runs sportsology, I mean, yes, but Russ, yeah, definitely, absolutely. I mean, question about it. No, I'm with you, Kevin. That's why you and I get along. We're always optimistic, speaking happy things. We talk about good things when we get together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we have a good show is because we're.
That's right. That's right.
Sure.
That's right.
But,
I've always
you know-
said the most pessimistic guys are deep inside are the optimists that are just getting killed all the time. I really think that's true. I think Mike is the most optimistic guy in the world, but he just has gotten killed so many times. He's just losing.
You're going to get one of these right. One of these teams that you're going to say can win the cup is going to.
It's going to be fantastic. I promise you. All right. Remember, without the buzz, folks, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow. We'll be talking Islanders.